Our guest speaker from Washington, D.C. is Maurice Carney. He's a co-founder and director of Friends of the Congo. He has worked with the Congolese for over 25 years in their struggle for peace, justice, and human dignity. He served as the interim Africa Working Group coordinator for Reverend Jesse Jackson when he served as a special envoy to Africa. Mr. Carney has worked as a research analyst for the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies and as a research consultant for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. For decades, Maurice has been advocating for the dignity and inclusion of the Congolese civil society in all efforts for peace, democracy, food sovereignty, and climate justice. He provides consultation to political leaders in the US, Canada, Latin America, Africa, the UN, as well as to international NGOs and funders. Interviews with Maurice can be found in the New York Times, Washington Post, Al Jazeera, Democracy Now!, Pacifica Radio Network, and a number of other media outlets. Please join me in giving Maurice a really warm welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Bonjour. Thank you. Mbote. Thank you for Wespac for inviting Friends of the Congo to be with you today. I'm filled with gratitude to be here on Wanape land where we could speak freely. You know, Dr. King, in his letter from the Birmingham jail, he was writing, and he said that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And it's in that spirit that I received this invitation, because our Palestinian brothers and sisters and those in solidarity with them consistently recognize that the injustices taking place in the heart of the African continent are worthy of note, worthy of attention, worthy to be spoken about. And it is in that spirit that I was invited here today to speak to you. I have a few questions just at the outset. If you could just show by raising your hand. How many of you have heard of or aware of the Congo? Just raise your hand. Let me see hands. Okay. How many of you have a cell phone? Raise your hands. How many of you have a laptop or a computer in your home? How many of you have kitchen utensils? How many of you drive a car or drive in an automobile? How about an airplane? How many of you are concerned about the climate crisis? How many of you are concerned about the so-called green or clean energy transition? So all of those questions that I just asked speak to the Congo and demonstrates that each and every one of you who raised your hands, whether you know it or not, are connected to the Congo. If you have a cell phone, if you drive an automobile, if you have kitchen utensils, if you fly in an airplane, if you're concerned about the climate crisis, if you're concerned about the green energy transition, clean energy transition, then you ought to be concerned about what's happening in the heart of the African continent in a country called the Democratic Republic of the Congo. It's a country the size of Western Europe, straddling the equator. The dawn of the 20th century, European geologists said it was a geological scandal because there's so much wealth packed into that space in the heart of the African continent that Joseph Conrad called the heart of darkness, that it was scandalous. It's a country the size of Western Europe with an estimated 100 million people, right in the heart of the African continent. Economists say the natural resources in the Congo are valued at about $24 trillion or so. So, you've heard recently, seen on social media, Free Congo as a hashtag. Why? Why does Congo matter? Why Free Congo? Congo needs to be freed from the exploitation, from the extraction. Congo needs to be freed from the conflict. When we talk about exploitation, the dawn of the 20th century, late 1800s, we saw that Congo was given to a king by the name of King Leopold II of Belgium at the Berlin Conference. He ruled it for a 23-year period. And during that 23-year period, the population was decimated by half. Estimated 10 million Congolese perished as the king extracted rubber, ivory, rubber ostensibly to feed the burgeoning auto industry. That's been the pattern in the Congo, not just since the late 1800s, but for the past 500 years, really. Congo has been central to us. The first extraction by Europeans out of the Congo were Africans themselves, human bodies. Emory University has a database where they document the Africans that were trafficked from the continent to the Americas. Almost half of them came out of the Congo region, Central Africa, 4 out of 10 to be precise. So 500 years of extraction from early 1500s to mid 1800s, extraction of human bodies, black bodies, to serve on the plantations in the Americas, Brazil, United States, Colombia, you name it. Then, 1800s, we saw the extraction of natural resources, rubber, feed the auto industry. From the rule of King Leopold was so brutal that there was a global uprising to take Congo away from the king. Mark Twain documented it in King Leopold's soliloquy. Congo then was turned over to the Belgian state. They ruled it as a colonial outpost, and it continued to serve the extractive process. The copper that was needed for the bullets for World War I, World War II, the industrial diamonds needed for World War II, the uranium that was needed for the Manhattan Project that ultimately developed the atomic weapons that dropped down Japan, came out of the Congo. Some out of Canada, but the best quality and the most came out of the Congo. So we see in this space in the heart of the African continent serve as an outpost for the extraction of natural resources, human resources, to feed capitalism, industrialization, development of the West. And that continues to this very day. So when we say free Congo, talking about freeing Congo from exploitation, freeing Congo from extraction, freeing Congo from poverty. This country that I'm talking about has a population of 100 million people. Of the 100 million people, 70 million live on less than $2.15 a day, according to the World Bank. In a country that economists say has got a value of $24 trillion. And we know the money is there. How do we know? Because we have a gentleman by the name of Dan Gertler, an Israeli, who's become a billionaire off the Congo. As we speak today, his plunder of the Congo is so outrageous that the Department of Treasury has put him on a sanctions list. Donald Trump took him off. Joe Biden put him back on. Wall Street Journal said that as we speak today, the United States is so concerned about critical minerals for its green energy transition that it's thinking about taking Dan Gertler off the sanctions list again. The billions that he makes out of the Congo, he repatriates to Israel, builds settlements on the West Bank. Dr. King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. That's a concrete example. The injustice that's taking place in the Congo through Dan Gertler demonstrates the extent to which it's connected to Palestine and Israel. So, that's the appeal on the part of Congolese to be freed from the extraction, free from the exploitation, free from imperialism. And it's not just me and Congolese who are saying that, but we've had renowned figures, freedom fighters that we're all very well aware of, that recognize the centrality of the Congo to not only Africa, but to the world. So much so that Fidel Castro sent Che Guevara to the Congo in 1965. Saw it as the front lines as a battle against colonialism. And Che Guevara, when he was there, he said that Congo's problem is a worldwide problem. The extent to which Congo is successful in overcoming colonialism and imperialism is the same extent to which the African continent will be successful. Fanon was not the only, Che was not the only one. Frantz Fanon, a revolutionary from Martinique, who fought with the Algerians against the French. You may be familiar with him for Wretched of the Earth, a number of other books. He wrote a book called Toward an African Revolution. And in that book, Fanon said, the fate of all of us is at stake in the Congo. He said that because he recognized the centrality of the Congo to the future of the African continent, and it was providential in that statement, because Congo is central today to the future of the planet. It's a part of the second largest rainforest in the world. If you're concerned about climate change, you ought to be concerned about what's happening in the Congo. It is, they call it the second lung, next to the Amazon, after the Amazon. However, what you find in the Congo, it sequesters more carbon than all of the tropical rainforests combined, including the Amazon. It is home to what they call the largest tropical peatlands in the world, that are the size of England. Peatlands are space where sediment has been accumulated over thousands of years, and it traps the carbon. It's a veritable carbon bomb. If it's not protected, then it can release up to 20 years of pollution that is comparable to what we see in the United States from the burning of fossil fuels or through the usage of a combustion engine. So it is critical when we take into consideration the climate crisis, the climate emergency. Then, by the same token, if we want to facilitate a green energy transition, central to the green energy transition, the clean energy transition, is rechargeable batteries. Rechargeable batteries for the electric vehicle. We've seen that the United States have passed a series of bills that speak to that, the CHIPS Act, the Infrastructure Act, and most recently, some claim the largest climate bill in the US history, Inflation Reduction Act. All of them have in their component for access to critical minerals, lithium, copper, nickel, cobalt. The key ingredient in batteries in your cell phones, iPads, electric vehicles that you drive is cobalt. And Congo produces 70% of the world's cobalt. That means if you were to add up all of the countries in the world that produce cobalt, they wouldn't equal what Congo produces. So we see a country in the heart of the African continent sitting at the nexus of the climate emergency and the green energy transition. So when the United Auto Workers gathered with 350.org and the Sierra Club and others and said, as a result of the IRA, we have to protect the workers at the top of the electric vehicle supply chain because of this transition from combustion engine to electric vehicles. I submit to you today, there is no top of the EV supply chain without the bottom. And at the bottom of the EV supply chain are children laboring in the mines in the Congo, cobalt mines. At the bottom of the EV supply chain are women who have the highest metallic content in their bodies in the world, in the Congo. At the bottom of the EV supply chain are those artisanal miners making less than $2.15 a day, while according to Vanity Fair, Dan Gertler makes $200,000 a day from the exploitation of the Congo. So, the appeal to you today when we talk about a free Congo is for you, first and foremost, to break the silence. Congo needs to be freed from the silence about its centrality to each and every one of us as you raise your hands and acknowledge at the outset. Congo needs to be free from the silence about the ravages of capitalism and the hyper-exploitation of the people. It's unconscionable. And we cannot continue to normalize a situation where a country that's so valuable to us in our everyday lives continue to be super exploited the way it is. So that's the appeal that we make to you today at a very base level. Let's not normalize the exploitation of Congo. Let's not normalize the extraction that's taking place in the Congo. Let's not normalize the fact that 6 million, and it's maybe 6 million Congolese have perished in the Congo from 1996 to the present. What the United Nations says is the deadliest conflict in the world, in large part because of the pursuit of those resources that I just shared with you. In large part so that Dan Gertler and other individuals and multinationals can be wealthy. So let's not normalize that. Let's break the silence. Let's free the Congo. Free Congo! Free Congo! Free Sudan! Free Sudan! Free Haiti! Free Haiti! Free Palestine! Go to freecongo.org, join the movement, be a part of change. Thank you. Thank you.
And that's the thing, we're hardly hearing about the Congo, and 10 million Congolese have lost their lives because of these resource wars, capitalism, exploitation. It's outrageous. 10 million people in the past 20 years have lost their lives, and we hardly read a sentence about it in American media. It's obscene. We're going to segue now to the workshops.
Maybe we can start off by introducing ourselves, just a round. Start to my side. Okay.
Hello, I'm Gretchen. I use she, her pronouns. Do you want us to tell?
Yeah, a little bit about which organization you're with.
I'm with the Poor People's Campaign and Westchester for Palestine, and sometimes involved in something else.
Okay, great.
Hi, my name is Camila. I'm not part of the organization. I'm just here to find out more.
Okay.
I use they, them pronouns.
Okay.
I'm Erica Carrasquillo. I'm Camila's mother. I'm a teacher in Westchester County. I teach social studies and English to immigrant children, and I'm here also just to learn and share.
Oh, fantastic.
My name is Pat Stanton. I'm a research scientist in neuroscience at New York Medical College. And I'm here for very similar reasons to really talk about how we make change when we're so far away economically and socially from the bottom, as you say, where things come from.
Hi, I'm Bobby Siegelbaum, and I've been an activist forever, it seems. And I'm just here. I'm here because it's just interesting to hear what other people have to say.
Okay, great.
I'm Steve Siegelbaum, Audrey's husband, and I'm here partly to connect with reconnect with my academic roots. My graduate degree is in African history, I studied at American University in Washington in a seminar where we had quite a range of students, two of whom were from, well, one was from Congo, Kinshasa, and one was from Brazzaville.
Congo, Brazzaville, yes. Yes.
So I'm back then, over 50 years ago,
Wow.
both Bobby and I came this close to doing some work in Africa, Sierra Leone to be precise, when, here's a nice connection, when the 1967 war broke out. And it's a long story, but suffice it to say that work that we were supposed to do in Sierra Leone got cut through that.
I see. Thank you for sharing that.
So
Let's see. Yes. 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 Absolutely.
Oh yeah, my name is Jung Yang. I am a student at Sarah Lawrence College, which is in Bronxville, not far away from here. We are a liberal arts college, so we don't really have a major, so students are allowed to freely choose their own academic focuses. So most of the classes I took are related with 20th century history, include decolonization, nationalism, and I've studied in economics.
Sorry to interrupt, but you must use the microphone.
Oh.
Because this is being recorded.
Oh. Sorry.
Is it on?
It's just going to record on this.
Okay. So so the classes I took are related with decolonization, nationalism, and my future academic goal would be on the direction of development studies, so that, you know, decolonization is a big theme connected with how the modern international circumstances were being formed, so that, yeah.
Okay. We have to talk some more about the decolonization projects.
My name's Imani. She, they pronouns. I'm from Mount Vernon, and I'm a member of Black Alliance for Peace, New York City, New Jersey, to be exact. I'm here really just to learn and just to connect with some of the work being done in the Westchester area, and some of the work that we do is, you know, internationalist based, and so we actually work with Friends of the Congo, which is interesting. And so we're like friends with them. And
Friends of the Congo.
Friends of the Congo, exactly. And yeah, so just looking to get more personal knowledge about what's going on and like how we can help. And yeah.
Great. Just again for everybody, my name is Maurice Carney. I'm one of the co-founders of Friends of the Congo. I currently serve as the organization's executive director. Just a little bit about Friends of the Congo. Friends of the Congo is an advocacy institution. It's a solidarity institution with two overarching aims. One is to raise global consciousness and awareness about what's happening in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. That's the first aim. The second is to provide support to frontline institutions on the ground and throughout the country, really. Those are on the front lines in the mining areas, and cobalt, copper mines, other mines. Those who are in the front lines in the conflict. The millions that I talked about who's perished in the Congo come primarily from the east of the country, bordering Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi. The entire country is not in conflict. It's there's an epicenter of the conflict. It's localized for the most part in the east of the country. So mining areas, in the conflict areas, frontline organizers in the rainforest, indigenous leaders who are in the rainforest, who provide support to them as well, and also in the urban areas, and particularly in the capital of the country. The capital is Kinshasa. It's a city that has more people than New York. It's got a population of 14 million in Kinshasa, and teeming with youth, young people. And in fact, the median age of the country as a whole is 17. which is consistent with the rest of the continent, the African continent, a continent of teenagers. And so we've been doing the work for over 20 years in really building a global constituency, a global support base for those on the front line, on the one hand, right? And then raising awareness about, in large part, the forces that are working against the people, right? The major forces working against the Congolese people are, first and foremost, their own local elites who benefit from the status quo. So government officials, members of parliament, they work more for international finance capital than they do for their own people. So they're local elites. It's a major challenge. The second is multilateral institutions, World Bank, International Monetary Fund. They, of course, work with private lenders, ultimately indebting the country.
Neoliberalism.
Neoliberalism, right? Exactly. And they come out of that what people call Washington consensus. Of course, that's what they promulgate. So you have a situation where the mining laws in the Congo were written by the World Bank, and they were written, of course, to support private interests, right? So you have the local elites, you have the World Bank, then you have multinational corporations, and they run up and down the supply chain, right? In between 2001 and 2003, the United Nations published 3 reports documenting the illicit exploitation of Congo's minerals by some 85 multinational corporations that they say they violated the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development guidelines, the OECD guidelines. They have guidelines for how companies in Europe, the United States are supposed to operate globally. So they document it. So you have these corporations, and then individuals like Dan Gertler and Benny Steinmetz, and Wall Street hedge funds like Zif, now named Sculpture, major mining companies like Glencore. These are all part of the corporations that have exploited the Congo to the detriment of the Congolese people. Then you have neighboring countries, right? Like a country like Rwanda, headed up by Paul Kagame, Uganda, headed up by Yoweri Museveni. For all intents, they're like agents of neocolonialism. That is to say, they do things in Africa that the US, UK, France do not want to do for themselves. Or it could be better for Africans to do it.
Looks better.
So yeah, so Rwanda is notorious for that. If you follow in the news, Benjamin Netanyahu wanted to get rid of those who are applying for immigrants or asylees, right? They didn't want them in Israel. So of course, Rwanda offered up, we'll take them from you for a price, right? The same thing now with René Snek, the president, Prime Minister of England. It began under Boris Johnson, right? Under Boris Johnson, now René Snek, right? They put up a bill where England would repatriate the asylees to Rwanda.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So he's basically at service. I'll give you another example. There's an oil company or a natural gas company in France called Total Oil. And they're exploiting gas in the Cabo Delgado region of Mozambique, where you have rebels rising up and making their job, the exploitation of natural gas difficult. So what France and the European Union have done is that they hired Rwanda's military to go in and protect the natural gas concessions in Mozambique. So these two countries, who are basically allies of the United States, have invaded the Congo twice. First in 1996, again in 1998, and that's what triggered the tremendous loss of life in the country. And to this day, then that began in 1996, and to this day they support proxy groups in the east of the Congo. So they themselves can also get access to the timber and the gold and the tin that they can put on their books, they can export from their countries, which helps them with their export earnings, and an added benefit, they get to register these earnings from Congo's minerals, and that helps to increase their bond rating in the international markets, get them better terms. So they have a vested interest in the instability, so the neighboring countries. And then finally, foreign governments, United States, Great Britain, France, European Union. So all of these forces are against the Congolese people. They're local elites, right? Multilateral institutions, multinational corporations, neighboring countries, and foreign governments. So what we're saying as an organization, we need to mobilize the world's people throughout the world, to come to the side of the Congolese and be in solidarity with them. And that it's in our own interest. You know, as I shared in the talk, we're connected to the Congo in so many ways. And just basic, just being a human being on this planet, to see that so many people have perished in relative obscurity, because a lot of people don't know that the deadliest conflict in the world has occurred in the heart of Africa. You know, millions of people have perished. Then just that alone should generate or stimulate something in us to say, let's find out why this is happening. Let's see if you say, well, what can be done from the outside. That's really a basic, even though you're not there, just breaking the silence about it, speaking about it, sharing with people. And that's really important, because the more people know, when we go and speak to them, they'll be more receptive and they'll be more inclined to, some people may just want to take it up and really get involved. Like NADA, Wespac, they invited us to come and speak a number of years ago, 7, 8 years ago, over their office at Wespac. And then she's kept in touch with us and continued to support our work. And 7 to 8 years later, she sees another opportunity where there's increased interest and consciousness. So this is an ideal platform to come and continue to build together and be in solidarity. So we have a concrete example right here with Wespac, that if you have an entity, institution, organization, you're connected to Sarah Lawrence, it's a high school that you're at, invite us in to come and share and speak, to educate and inform people, because that's the foundational. We can't expect people to take any kind of solidarity action if they don't know, right? If they're not educated, if they're not informed. So that's a big part of what we're doing in organizing to educate, inform people. And then we try to enroll people in helping us with that, in being, in spreading the word, going to our website, going to our social media platforms, taking our information and getting it out there. That is so critical. And I have to say, this millennial generation, this Gen Z generation that are outraged about the genocide unfolding in Gaza, they've really taken to heart Dr. King's words, where they're seeking injustices elsewhere as well, and saying, hey, we need to rally. We can hold space for Palestine, we can hold space for Sudan, we can hold space for Haiti, we can hold space for Congo, all at the same time, right? It doesn't have to be one at a time, right? So that's what we're doing, that's the aim. So this workshop is to see what support that we can build in your respective communities, for you to learn more. If any questions that you want to ask from what I presented or what I've shared just now, want to know how to get involved, want to know what you can do with, in your own realm, purview, then that's what this space is for, to build that kind of or support, or just to learn more. There's opportunity. If you just want to take it in, and it's the first time maybe hearing about what's happening and want to learn more, then we can do that as well. I'll share a story with you which is really interesting, just to give you an idea in terms of people getting involved. So the folks usually look to us and say, how do I get involved, right? And so we can share, you gotta get involved. But what we found is that the most substantive involvement that we've experienced are people's ideas that they bring to the table and say, okay, you know, friends of the Congo, you've shared all this with us, this information, we know what's going on. This is what I'm going to do based on my understanding, my expertise, my know-how, my talents, knowing my community. Like each and every one of you know best your communities and how, with the information that we're given to get involved. So we had this young lady that contacted us in December, and she's on TikTok. I don't know how many of you are on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok. She's on TikTok. So she says, I'm going to do a fundraiser for you on TikTok. So we're like, okay, sure. Like, how does that work? You know? And she says, well, I'm going to get people to contribute from my streams, I think she said.
Yeah.
Right? Is that how contribute from your streams?
Yeah.
Maybe you can, you know how it works?
Yeah, there's like two ways you can do it. One,
Okay.
if someone is like in the creator program, if you watch like their videos, they'll get money from there, or you can make like a filter or a song or whatever, and the more plays it gets, or if you interact with like the filter, they'll get money off of that. So a lot of those have actually been going around where people, and then they'll donate the money to
an organization,
yeah.
right, or a cause. So we had this journalist that contacted us and said that this young lady says she's raising money for you guys, you know, on TikTok, and we're investigating all this because there's a lot of scams going on. And so we said, well, you know, so they asked us, have you received any money from her yet? I said, no, right? But we talked to her and says it takes time. We know it takes time. Like we do a fundraiser on Instagram, and it goes through PayPal Giving Fund, and they take 45 days, you know, to give you put the money into your account. So I think TikTok is similar. So we understand that. She seems sincere. We haven't received any money yet, but she said that she's going to donate the money to Friends of the Congo. And she was getting a lot of hate. People are like, you're a scammer. You know, what are you doing?
I feel like I know exactly what
You know, they were just like pouring a lot of hate on her. So she contacted us and she sent us, you know, $198, maybe about 2 months later. And so that's cool, that's cool. Thank you so much, right? And then she contacted us again, and she said, did you get my next donation? And we said, well, let me check. $9,000, right? So we're like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Like, that's not something we would have come up with, right? That's her domain. I'm not even on TikTok, right? And then she called us again. It's like, you know, how things going? And then we're like, remember we told you we got the $9,000? I said, no, I'm just calling to see if you got the $10,000 that I sent recently. Right? So to date, she's raised $20,000. Right? So we sent 100%. We haven't sent the $10,000 yet. We sent the $9,000. 100% of it to our partners in the rainforest, because people are being displaced by some violence. And there's been increasing floods, and they're being displaced by floods. So they received the money, they acknowledged receipt of the money, they sent her a video thanking her, and then now they're showing where they're moving the medicine and materials. First they have to move it by boat, and then up the Congo River. Then they load it off the boat, and then they have to put it on a tractor trailer. It's a tractor with a caboose, basically, to take it to 8 villages, and then main villages, and then about 3 dozen sub-villages. So here it is that a TikToker that's using her talent is being able to support folks in the rainforest with medicine, materials that otherwise wouldn't have happened. So we use that I share that anyways as an example, that it's those ideas that come from people that have served us best, you know, over the years. We have a film called Crisis in the Congo, and I encourage everyone to see it. It's called Crisis in the Congo: Uncovering the Truth. A film we produced in 2011, still pretty much relevant today. But we're the producers. Some filmmakers who are in Hollywood and technicians, they came to us and said that we want to produce a film on the situation in the Congo. You write the script, you tell us who to interview, and we'll go and do it. And they went and produced the film, and 13 years later, the film is still very much relevant and is a great explainer of, it's like a Congo in a nutshell, so to speak, of what's happening in the country. It's called Crisis in the Congo, Uncovering the Truth. So I say that to set the stage, let you know that it's just like, whatever you bring to the table, you know your community best, you know best what your expertise and talents are, that you can use that to help us build a global support base for folks on the front lines in the Congo. So I'll just open it up. I've spoken enough for any questions, any suggestions around the work that we're doing. And yes.
I have a question. To what extent?
And maybe you can say your name again for the mic. I'm supposed to pass that to you.
Sorry, yes. My name is Gretchen, and a question I have is, are there any, because there are so many major players who are impacting the DRC, what are you doing policy-wise? Like, is that an area that you're working on? Is that an area that you want people's support on? Just wanted to hear about that dimension of things, because those are huge Goliaths that you're up against.
Yes. Thank you for the question, Gretchen. Policy-wise, I don't need. Oh, that's right. Everybody else does. That's right. I'm mic'd up. Thank you for the question, Gretchen. Policy-wise, there are two in the realm of politics, and one in a legal realm. The United States is a major donor nation to Rwanda and Uganda, and Rwandan government is fueling the conflict right now that's ongoing. And the United States provides funding, it provides equipment, provides military equipment, military training through AFRICOM. It provides intelligence to Rwandan government, Ugandan government. And it also provides diplomatic and political cover for them. So if your university wanted President of Rwanda to come and speak, and gets a stamp of approval from the State Department, and has full access to your university to come and speak to the students and spread his story. If the United Nations tried to hold to account, put Rwandan government officials on sanctions lists or anything like that, the United States runs interference. So they're allies of the United States, so they protect them. So we are calling on people to sign a petition that we have. The petition is on freecongo.org. It's not a petition, it's really a letter that goes to members of Congress saying that we don't want our tax dollars fueling conflict in the Congo, withhold military aid from Rwanda, right? That's a specific policy request that we have. And it's on freecongo.org. I think we have maybe 25, maybe up to 30,000 signatures. So we want to, grow that exponentially. So that's something that everybody can do. Freecongo.org, sign the petition. Second, we're mobilizing to put pressure on the Democratic Party and members in the party, and President Biden, not to remove the sanctions from Dan Gertler. In principle, we're not in support of sanctions, but when the Treasury Department sanctions somebody for corrupt practices in the Congo, they got to be like way beyond the pale, right, for that to happen. So if you put the sanctions in place against this individual, leave it. But the Wall Street Journal reported that they're trying to remove Gertler from sanctions. So that's the second policy. The third is less policy, but more a request that we make noise, mobilize, contact reporters, whatever we need to do, so that Congo can show up as a part of the debate during the election cycle, right? And we've done this with some reporters. We're interviewing Jill Stein, for example. So she's spoken out on the Congo and the violence that's taking place there. So we want more people in the political arena during the election cycle for Congo to be a part of the discussion as well. Another one that's aside, we're working with an organization called International Rights Advocates in Washington, D.C. It's headed up by attorney. His name is Terry Collinsworth. In 2019, he filed a lawsuit against 5 major tech companies, Apple, Tesla, Dell, Microsoft, and Google, for sourcing minerals from the Congo, or being involved in sourcing minerals from the Congo that is tainted by child labor, right? It's been in the courts for a number of years, and unfortunately, the DC Court of Appeals, maybe about 4 weeks ago or so, 3-4 weeks ago, ruled in favor of the companies and struck down the lawsuit. The 3-judge court said that the suit that was brought on behalf of 16 children or so, who either some of them died, maimed, their families injured from being in the mines, it had standing, right? But the case that was brought didn't sufficiently prove or didn't demonstrate or even argue that these companies were in venture with the companies on the ground that were using child labor, that they're just buyers, and they have to be proven to be in a venture. Now, Tesla, post-2019, is actually in a venture with a mining company called Glencore. But the attorneys couldn't use that because the suit was filed before Tesla entered into the venture. So even though they know that precision that the judges made in a narrow ruling, it's not retroactive. And so the ruling that they made is actually happening. Tesla is in a venture with Glencore, sourcing the cobalt from Glencore for its vehicles, right? So it's back to the drawing board, but we want to keep the pressure up and letting these companies know that we know they're sourcing minerals from the Congo. Congolese are not benefiting, so shame on you. We're at a shame stage now, unfortunately. That's what's left. But there's some other things that are brewing that the attorney's looking at, so we're going to come back out. But for the moment, we can at least keep it out there and shame those companies. So thank you for those questions. Those are the letter to the members of Congress, Dan Gerler note to the sanctions, not so much policy specific, but lifting up Congo to be a part of the debate going forward, and shaming these companies that just benefited from DC Circuit Court of Appeals rather, ruling. Yeah. Oh, yes, Imani. Yeah. And just say your name again for the mic.
Imani. Can you speak a little bit more, because I heard you name AFRICOM, can you speak a little bit more to how AFRICOM kind of plays into kind of keeping this whole thing going? Sure.
AFRICOM is called the Africa Command. It's a initiative that came out of the Heritage Foundation. Heritage Foundation is a major conservative think tank in Washington, D.C. And, the U.S. seeks full spectrum domination around the world, some 800 bases all over the world. And they have command in different parts of the world. And in 2008, under Donald Rumsfeld and George Bush, they established the African Command. At first, it's run out of Stuttgart, Germany. First, they wanted to establish it on the African continent, but almost all of the African heads of state rejected it. I think at the time, except for Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who was the president of Liberia at the time. So they run it out of Stuttgart, and really in a lot of respects, AFRICOM and U.S. expansion of its military presence in Africa is a response to China and China's increasing influence in Africa. Its economic prowess, which neither the United States nor the European Union can compete with China's Belt and Road Initiative. So the gun is the equalizer that the United States special forces, military bases on the continent probably most notably, that's pierced the consciousness of the American public. It's when American soldiers were killed in Niger a number of years ago. Yeah, right there, which is where you find the largest drone base, I think in the world, if I'm not mistaken, in Niger. Agada is a $100 million drone base, $25–30 million maintenance each year. So, although Donald Rumsfeld and George Bush established AFRICOM in 2008, it was under the Obama administration that it really took off, increased some 2,000% or so under his administration, meaning more special forces, more bases throughout the continent, and of course all that, a lot of that culminated in the Africa Command NATO regime change in Libya, right? Where Hillary Clinton was on the forefront of that, our Sarkozy of France, where they went in and bombed Gaddafi, Libya, which had, say unintended, but intended consequences. One thing you'll notice, I mean, if you look at it objectively, you don't even have to speculate. There's a concomitant increase in terrorism on the African continent with the increase of AFRICOM.
Yeah.
Just an objective observer would say, oh, these two are related, you know, advent of AFRICOM, increase of terrorism. And the quintessential example of that is the bombing of Libya, which unleashed terrorist groups in the Sahel. You know, we're talking about countries like Burkina Faso, you know, Mali, you know, talking about Mauritania, countries, Niger, all these countries in the Sahel. And so, like with Black Alliance for Peace, Friends of the Congo, we say no to Africa. We pressure our members of Congress to say shut down AFRICOM. BlackAllianceForPeace.com, they have a program, shut down AFRICOM. It's not accruing. Like if you think of 100 things that, just think about it. Top 100 things that's needed in Africa. You think military bases are on the list? You know, you'll talk about maybe wells, food aid, or not necessarily food aid, but agricultural technology, the bit. Schools, right? All of that, anything. Yeah. Leaving people alone, even that, right? But not more military bases. So, you know, when the administration first came out with AFRICOM, they said that they're going to be helping building wells and supporting humanitarian efforts. You don't need a military for that, right? So not in Africa. So that's the Africa Command that we say needs to be shut down on the African continent, and support the campaign at Black Alliance for Peace, BlackAllianceForPeace.com, the Shut Down African campaign. It's important. Yes, you can take the mic and just introduce yourself right now.
So, I'm Steve with Jewish Voice for Peace, Westchester. Well, two things. One, a broader historical. All of the various nefarious leaders that Congo has had over the decades, from the days of Kasavubu and Moise Tshombe, well, after Lumumba. I said nefarious. Through, I guess, most notoriously Mobutu. Down to the present. Has there been any appreciable improvement in the level of Congolese leadership, the Congolese presidency, or does the usual suspects, France, Belgium, the US, etc., still exert the kind of poisonous influence that it did ever since Congo was established as a nation?
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a really important question. There is a gentleman from the Council on Foreign Relations. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Council on Foreign Relations. Not the most radical institution out there, right? Very much part of the company. His name is Stuart Reed, and he recently wrote a book entitled The Lumumba Plot.
The Lumumba Plot?
Lumumba Plot. The Lumumba Plot. And he wrote an article, commentary in the Washington Post in October of 2023. The Lumumba Plot basically draws from declassified documents from the State Department about what is later come to be known as the largest covert action in the world at that time in the 1960s. The largest covert action in the world in the 1960s was to overthrow the democratically elected Prime Minister of the Congo, Patrice Lumumba, who was freely elected by the people. He comes in the line of Mogadishu in Iran, for example, Allende in Chile, Arbenz in Guatemala. It's in that category where CIA covert action has gone around the world and overthrown leaders. Well, Lumumba was particularly painful. He was overthrown in a matter of weeks, really. Didn't give him much time. And then ultimately assassinated in less than 7 months. And Stuart Reed unearthed, he basically put in book form his declassified documents. And in a commentary in the Washington Post, he said that really the United States owes Congo reparations for what it did. It destroyed the country by not only overthrowing and ultimately assassinating its first democratically elected leader, but what they did was they imposed a dictatorship over the Congolese people for over 3 decades. And they maintained it. Every time Congolese people rose up, the U.S. sent in bombers. So in one instance, they sent in mercenaries, Cuban mercenaries, that were driven up by Castro and were hanging out in Miami. They organized them and sent them to the Congo. It's probably part of the reason why Che was counting and said, we can beat them in Cuba, we can beat them in the Congo. All right? But the point is that what the declassified documents said, that every leader that rose to power after Lumumba, within the first decade or so, the CIA had a hand in that leader as to who would lead and be a part of that process. And really every leader that has risen to power in the Congo since Lumumba has done so in the graces of the United States. If you didn't have the stamp of the United States, you're not going to be a leader of the Congo. And that remains the case to this very day. So those leaders don't really act in the interests of the people, because their fate is really not based in the people. So that's a really important point. The extent to which the United States has basically cast a die for the Congolese people in terms of, if you read it, there's a book that was written by the chief of station of the CIA. His name is Larry Devlin. The book is the same title, Chief of Station Congo. And in the book, it's really a playbook for overturning democratically elected leader. He talked about how he corrupted the local elites, the Mobutus and others, and really how money was used, influence was used, the power of the United States was used to shape the leadership of the Congo. And that corrupt leadership that was planted in the DNA of the political system by the United States, by their own admission. That's not me saying it. He lays it out in his book. He tells you what he did. It's still very much in place among the elites. So in supporting local institutions on the ground, trying to get support to them so that they can be strong enough to exert an influence on their leaders. That's one of the big aims of our of our mobilizing efforts. So when a young lady raised $19,000 that goes to the rainforest, you know, they're delivering medicine, they're delivering materials, but they're also delivering a message that we shouldn't have to be depending on outside to get medicine here. We're a rich country, and it's being plundered, and our local elites are facilitating that. So there's a consciousness raising effort that's underway. Yeah. Yes?
Wait, just one more
Sure.
thing, very quickly. Bobby and I are involved in running a coffee house once a month in White Plains called Walkabout Clearwater Coffee House. And each month we have what's called an activist of the month.
Okay.
Can be somebody from the environmental area, peace group, whatever. And if you have a card or something, and if you're free or some of your folks are free on May 18th, which is when our May Coffee House will be, we would be happy to have
That's
you
coming.
or someone from your group be
Okay.
present as our activist of the month, to bring material, you know, and talk to folks. Sometimes we call him the troublemaker of the month. It's the same thing.
Got you.
So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my name's Pat. I think you can make a compelling argument that capitalism, and certainly unregulated capitalism, is incompatible with dealing with issues specifically like climate change, anything for which the major costs and damage are punted into the future. And so my question as an individual citizen is, it's really two related questions, is clearly our choices for politicians who we can even influence is tremendously influenced by capitalism. It's influenced by who can raise the money to even run for office and take office. So it can be very frustrating to figure out how to coordinate political action to influence actors who we haven't paid for. And the related issue is then, as consumers, we're all consumers. I just hid my Apple iPhone in my pocket, right? It can be extremely difficult to find the information you need to even take effective political action to decide, I will buy this and not this. I will support this and not this. It can even extend to electric cars, where I've been deciding, well, my next car needs to be a full electric car. Then you read about lithium as a non-renewable resource. It's extracted from under rainforests, that's extracted with child labor, and that is potentially has as large a climate cost as the advantage of being electric. And you think, well, maybe I should get a hybrid. It's only 1/16 the lithium. But these kinds of decisions are very difficult. I mean, I have an app on my phone called Boycat that at least allows you to look at the barcode of products in the store and say, this product is a pro-Israeli company, is not in support of the people of Gaza, and so I won't buy this, I'll buy this. But how do we as consumers of politicians and consumers of stuff coordinate our biggest strength, which is in numbers? Collectively, we have tremendous economic power, but there's a lot of us, so where do we go to find out how to behave most effectively?
That's a really big question, and we haven't figured that out yet. You know, in the politics realm, of course, we've our petitions and pressure bore some fruit during the Obama administration in terms of our demand for the U.S. government to withhold aid from the Rwandan government, and probably because not only pressure was coming from us, friends of the Congo, but major publications were writing about what we were talking about. And President Obama was a special case. It's one of his signature legislation as a senator was on the Congo. He wrote a bill that got passed into law on the Congo. And there are aspects of that bill while he was president that he wasn't implementing. So we had leverage in the sense that, you know, we can use his own material against him, and then the media picked it up and started pressuring him, and there's a lot of other actions as well. So he withheld military aid from Rwanda. Not a lot of money, $200,000, which is nothing at all. But that wasn't the most important part, the money, because what that did was it sent a signal to other governments, particularly in Europe, that they can go ahead and withhold aid. So tens of millions of dollars were withheld, Sweden and Germany and Netherlands, all those countries. With the consumer part is so difficult to really nail that down. Because there's several things. We haven't seen an appeal from the Congolese people for a boycott, right? They've asked for a lot of things, but not a boycott, right? And in launching a boycott, we've seen people on social media say, boycott this, boycott that, but with these companies, but how effective is it going to be? Is it going to be successful? Is it well thought through? Is it planned, And that hasn't happened yet in terms of that level of planning and energy. The successful boycott campaign, I know there's a BDS right now. Before that, you had, during the anti-apartheid era, there's a boycott campaign, Free South Africa, anti-apartheid. And we looked at that. Of course, apartheid came to an end, right? And not really because of the boycott. I think mainly because of the Cubans, right? There's a reason why Nelson Mandela went to Cuba immediately after he was released from prison, right? Because Cubans sacrificed blood, soldier lives to free South Africa, and by defeating the South Africans in Angola. But today, with the boycott then, and we look at South Africa today, and we see that 85% of the wealth is still controlled by the minority. And one of the key drivers and push for people of the Congo is that for the Congolese people to control the wealth, Congolese people to control the land, control the resources, and control their own affairs, right? So that's what we're pushing for to support those institutions or local institutions in controlling the affairs, being decision makers over their own land, over their own resources. And we feel like the campaigns that have happened in the past, whether it's in the Congo, early 1900s, anti-apartheid movement, they didn't result in the people actually being the owners. So that's where we're putting the bulk of our energy or resources. When we're sitting and talking with you, we're sharing the narrative, putting pressure on outside for sure, but ultimately the kind of change that we want to see in the final analysis, that the Congolese people want to see, is that they control their resources. So whatever we can do to channel support to them. And part of it is telling that narrative, I mentioned all those forces that are working against the people, but there's a tremendous amount of agency, organizing, ideas, vitality happening on the ground. And we want people to join in supporting that effort. They can support those efforts by providing a platform. So Sarah Lawrence at a high school, we wanted to organize a forum where leaders in the rainforest, indigenous leaders, can share with you what's happening there and give you some insights and let you know how you can support. We're going to be having a forum on the 27th of April where we're going to provide a platform for diggers. They call them cruiseurs. They have collectives in the Congo that are made up of 50,000, 100,000 diggers. These are people that go in, artisanal miners, small-scale miners. They go in and dig out the copper, the manganese, the nickel, the cobalt, right? And their story is not really told by them, for sure, right? So providing platforms for those stories to be told, the narrative, is so critical. I like the idea of that app, in terms, it's an education tool too, because you learn. So that's something that we should think about. But we're so far away from concretely and effectively doing a boycott, what we share with people right now is you have the phones, use refurbished or purchase refurbished phones, cut back on the upgrade, use the phones as a means for organizing and spreading the word. Make it a tool, you know. Who's it? Octavia Butler said, you cannot use your master's tools to dismantle the master house. They can use the cell phone, the smartphone to organize, share information, and get the word out, educate. It's not Octavia Butler. Who said that?
I'm pretty sure it was Audre Lorde.
Audre Lorde, not Octavia Butler. Audre Lorde. Yeah. So that's what we're saying right now until we get to that point where we can we see a boycott will be effective, and Congolese are asking for it. Yeah. Good.
Oh, sorry. I only just wanted to say a word in favor of boycotts, because if they weren't impactful or potentially impactful, we wouldn't see such pushback against the BDS movement.
Absolutely.
Like the way that our government stands against any form of boycotting shows that it has potential to be powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
So I just want to.
Yeah, no, I wasn't saying across the board. I was saying that for the Congo case, not. Yeah, have to be organized, and they are, because if you look at the state legislatures in different parts of the country, that if you're even in support of BDS, you're funding. You know, I can tell you so many stories of folks who have gotten their contracts withdrawn, you know, just because they have supported BDS, or they have a consultant in their company that's supportive of BDS. So as a resistance tool, very effective. It's just that we're not at that stage yet, and we haven't developed the capacity to get to that stage yet. Yeah. So by all means, thank you for interjecting around that.
I just wanted to kind of add to like the what do we do kind of thing. So things aren't, there's not often like a solution to things, because these problems are often multi-layered and often require a multi-layered solution. But the easiest thing we can do is gain more political education and help politically educate other people, and also organize, right? And organizing is kind of like, it is a lot of hard work, but it's the way for people to gain enough power to affect change, right? So our individual actions are good because it, one, makes us feel better about our choices, right? But it also helps us kind of talk to other people about what we should be doing and things like that. And also just sometimes you don't want to interact with a company that is a Zionist company. Like I haven't bought from McDonald's in a long time, and I probably won't, because I just cannot do it, right? I just can't bring myself to do it, right? But the bigger thing is to get organized, because we have to gather up enough power to actually create change, because as you mentioned, we don't really have control over our politicians, right? They're beholden to corporate interests, and so we can't just, snap our fingers or, whatever and get them to do what we want them to do, right? And in order to affect the kind of change that we're looking for, that requires a lot of discomfort on our part, right? Because we live in a country that's causing these problems, right? We were just talking about hiding our phones because we felt like, because we're the ones benefiting from these issues, right? A lot of people who are in these countries that are experiencing this extreme extraction don't have the things that they are producing, right, for us to have. So for example, I took a trip to Ghana years and years ago, and there are people in Ghana who've never tasted chocolate, right? Even though they produce chocolate. Like I went and picked a cacao pod off a tree and ate one of the pods, and obviously it doesn't taste like anything like chocolate. It is yummy though. So, but like there are some people, like not everybody, but there are some people there who've never eaten chocolate, right? Sorry, I've been trying not to curse. But how does that work? You know what I mean? And there, like I said, there's plenty of people who are, so don't make it seem like, but there were a handful of people that I met personally who had just not eaten chocolate before. And there are people, and that's not just in Africa, right? We're talking about, but, we mentioned lithium, right? There's a lot of mining for lithium in South America, right? We mentioned AFRICOM. Southcom is in South America, right? Doing the same processes in South America I don't remember the woman's name, but the head of Southcom in Africa says out her mouth outright that they have to hold that place down in order to be able to have access to lithium amongst other things, right? And so because this stuff is so vast and spread out, we really do just have to dig in where we are and kind of like educate other people and help organize people here so that we can effectively advocate for what we're doing in addition to our own personal choices, right? So yeah, I think that's really what we should really be focused on.
Thanks, Imani, for that contribution. Any other recommendations how we can organize and best support folks who are thousands of miles away? We've talked about education, political education, and I'll share with you what folks are doing. Students from Cornell and Morehouse and a bunch of other universities are organizing a student network in support of the Congo. So if you're on a campus and you want to plug into the student network, you know, there's a space there. If you know students, professors, still got connections to American University, recommend that they go to freecongo.org and join up to the student network. We have young women at Spelman University, Spelman College, and they're taking on an initiative where they're mobilizing support for women in the Congo, young women who are sewing reusable pads. And they're sewing reusable pads and distributing them freely. And it's a way for the women to educate themselves and their peers about the cycle, your cycle, its importance, that it's not a taboo. And use it as a means for combating sexual violence, which is a big challenge in the Congo. We have folks that are connected to organizations. I mentioned Nada, who's invited us in, so invite us to speak. As you have, we'll see if we can do something on the 18th. People are inviting us virtually as well. If you're part of an organization, climate justice organization, any other organization, try and run it up the chain. Say, what's your Congo policy as it relates to the climate crisis? Right? Ask the questions. So those are some of the things that people are doing. Some are taking it to a whole nother level. If you want to go into the Congo to see what's there so they can get a better sense as to how they can come back and advocate. We have delegations that take people there as well. If you may recommend somebody to go on a delegation from your organization or your network, to contact us. Again, freecongo.org is the domain that we're using for people to go and sign up to be part of any of these efforts. Share our work on social media. It sounds simple, but it is so important that I've discovered that the more people know, the better. Like, it's just, I'm not on Instagram either. I'm sorry. I'm not. I shut down my Facebook page maybe about 10 years ago. So I'm not on any social media really. So I may not be the best person, but I've seen what our team members have done with social media. So I just spread the word on all of on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Congo Friends, @Congo Friends on all of them. Follow, join, share, spread the word about the work, about the narrative, that the ultimate aim of Congolese is to control and determine their own affairs, that we're all connected to the Congo, whether we know it or not. That Congo is vital to the future of the planet, both in terms of the climate crisis, energy transition. That narrative to get out is really important. And I say that because the narrative that has historically been out there around the Congo, and we're working on a film right now where we're documenting indigenous knowledge and wisdom in the Congo Basin and the role that it plays in preserving the rainforest and its biodiversity, which is in direct contradiction to the historic knowledge that's been out there. Africa has been seen as the dark continent. And Congo is the heart of darkness. That's the narrative that's out there. So what happens there is not really worthy of any inquiry, because whatever is happening there that's bad, it's always been bad and it's never going to be good. Right? That's the narrative that's out there. And basically Joseph Conrad's, I don't know if you're reading it in high school, is Heart of Darkness. It's a classic high school novella, right? So that notion of the heart of darkness is still out there. So we can all play a role in shattering that narrative, that there's a tremendous amount of light, tremendous amount of agency, tremendous amount of vitality coming out there, out of the heart of the African continent. What's happening is not this atavistic, tribalistic, endemic tribalistic conflicts that we've seen, but it's called in the midst of a geostrategic battle. Congo's on the front lines between China, this Belt and Road Initiative, and the recently developed United States, PGII they call it, which is the United States' latest response to China's Belt and Road Initiative, the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. Right? Congo is the ground zero for that right now, where the United States have moved in and they developed what they call the Lobito Corridor. It's a rail line that stretches from the interior of Congo out to Angola, port called Lobito. And they're shipping copper out. That's their route to get access to critical minerals for the US. And they're doing it with the European Union under that guise. So there's a geostrategic battle that's happening there. And that includes and connects all of us. So that narrative, every one of you can help with getting that narrative out there. It's really, really important. Yes?
Sorry. Pat, yeah. I've never been on TikTok either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beyond an age, I guess, where that happens, right? But my niece isn't, my son isn't, others. And I have really noticed the power of it in the war on Gaza now, because you get to the point where a major representative of an American lobbying group says, we don't have a Gaza problem, we have a TikTok problem.
Yes.
Specifically saying it's about all of those citizen journalists in Gaza who are posting videos that can't be suppressed, that can't be, and you begin to wonder to yourself, so is the real reason that they're worried about TikTok being an arm of the Chinese government now is because it's an arm of actual unregulated information that people can get?
Absolutely.
And so my thought and suggestion is, can there be a TikTok, channel or a series of TikTok feeds about corporate behavior in Congo, about what life is like in Congo? If it's the heart of darkness because there's no information, then maybe my niece has now convinced me that these short videos on TikTok, no longer than half a minute or so, are incredibly impactful and they're viral.
Yes. Thank you for that question. And it's being done. We have a social media team. They're meeting this afternoon, actually. We meet every week and every Sunday. And we produce content coming from the ground, content that the team comes up with. We've have interns that are helping, doing the research and providing content for the social media team. That's on. They use TikTok. TikTok is one of the main tools. There was one of the our interns is from George Washington University. And there's an organization in the UK called Rights and Accountability in International Development. And they just produced a report on documenting how extraction of cobalt is negatively affecting the local population, the environment, and the health. So the student from George Washington University, she's in environmental science. or engineering. It's some. When she explained it to me, I was like, well, I didn't know this major existed. She's a graduate student, so she went in the report, which is volumes of pages and statistics and stuff, and she basically extracted the essentials of the report and broke it down on TikTok. Created a TikTok video that has gone viral, and people are saying, so they're getting reports. That's just a concrete example of how they're using the social media.
But it occurs to me, I don't need to know how to use TikTok. I
Right.
just need to know my niece. Or her friend is posting things.
Yeah.
A friend of that friend. So it really is a situation where
Yeah.
I was going to ask, so how do I find a TikTok channel related to Congo? And I think the answer would be find other people interested in Congo, and someone will tell me. It will spread to me.
Or ask your niece, hey, what you seen on the Congo? Can you find some videos on the Congo for me?
Yep.
And hey, by the way, do your uncle a favor and share it. Share information about the Congo with your friends. Let them know about it. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, it's kind of interesting. The BBC did a report on the Congo, maybe back in December. And the reason they did the report, the reporter said, there's all this talk about the Congo on social media, so we feel compelled to bring in an expert to tell us why this is happening, right? So that's the social media, the TikToks and all that, creating news that the mainstream or the corporate media is responding to. So,
And that's hard to
but
censor.
not right now.
Not when the BBC does it, but when it's spreading.
Well, this is what's happening. It's being censored right now. Like the TikToks, Instagram, they have I don't know the mechanics of it. Shadow banning, they call it.
Yes.
Where certain words are mentioned, like river to the sea, genocide, then the algorithms suppress them, so that only people like within your small network can actually see them, but the broader community is not exposed to them.
And even in your network, you don't. If
Sometimes
somebody's
you don't
shadow
see
banned, their video isn't pushed out at all, even to their followers. And so
Right.
it's like, unless you're on their page looking through their stuff,
Right.
you're just not gonna see it.
And
Yeah.
Instagram has this new feature where it
Yes.
turns on this thing that like like a parental feature or whatever.
Yes.
It's kinda
Parental
like that,
guide,
but
yeah.
except it's for like political content. So it's switched on that says like don't show political content, and you have
Yeah.
to literally go in there and turn it off. It's
It allows
fine.
pornography, but not
Right, exactly. Exactly.
And so it's an automatic.
It's a default.
I get
Automatically
it.
is default on. You have to go in and turn it off.
Yeah.
In order
Yeah.
to be able to see anything that it deems political on your
Yeah.
timeline now.
Yeah, so those are the Instagrams, the
That's the
TikToks.
response to
Yeah,
everyone
one's
Yeah,
out
they're
there.
finding ways.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can also, I mean, like, because I'm older, but I like to be on TikTok anyway, I'll save TikTok videos and then put them on my, like, stories on Facebook so that all my fellow olds can see
Yeah, yeah.
and
how I've
that's
seen a
like
lot of
fresh.
stuff.
Yeah, so we're getting some good tactics here to use to get the content out. Beautiful. Anyone else, any suggestions, ideas go ahead.
So yeah,
You say your name first.
Yeah,
okay?
Zheng Yang. I've studied a bit about colonialism and the construction of nationalism, so that I constantly feel that it is not about. So colonialism means more than being governed by a bunch of white people, but it also contains the power relationships, and there are plenty of possibilities for the local elites, Western educated, and they construct the way of they use their ways to construct nationalism in a favorable way, so that the power relationships between the ex metropoles and ex colonies can be maintained. So yeah, this is the part of a question I am working on personally right now.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And Congo may be an interesting historical
It is.
space for you to do for those studies, right?
Especially
Go
when I realized that actually Mobutu is the active implemented active propaganda to raise the heroic actions of Lumumba as a martyr of, as a hero of nationalism.
Yeah, but that elite that you talk about, the part of the project of the Belgians was to create that elite, right? Which Lumumba was a part of, and they called them évolués, where it's turn the African into a European surrogate, so to speak, so that they can function as a buffer class and also a conduit between the colonizer and the masses, right? So that évolué would, in order for you to become évolué, the colonial administrator would come into your home, see if your children are clean and well kept, see if you're eating with utensils, not using your hands, see if everything is in order and proper in your home. And if it is, then you get a pass. And now you can be a part of the évolué class, which means you have some of the privileges of the colonialists, but not all. You know, you may not be able to go into the same stores that they're able to go into. You can't live in the same neighborhoods, but your children can be bused over so they can get education, better education if they want to. So that class that, like the Belgians actually engineered, you know, try to engineer that buffer class. And Lumumba was a part of it. He was an évolué that ultimately committed class suicide, which came about because of his connection and political education around more radical leaders on the African continent when he had attended a conference in 1958 in Ghana. So the Congo is a remarkable case for studying that. And that évolué class that's tethered to the Belgians still exists in the Congo today. You know, if you look at the current president of the Congo, he was working in Belgium before he became president. He's repatriated a lot of money to Belgium, where he's bought, large homes and, just you name it, in Belgium. His children go to school in Belgium. So that line that is now under the form of neocolonialism.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the things that Lumumba railed against was how coming out of colonialism and into independence, how many of the elites wanted to acquire what the Belgians had, basically be a replacement for the Belgians, wanted to be in their homes, wanted the cars, wanted the women. That was their liberation, which had nothing to do with the masses. So that political class is still very much in place today in the Congo.
I've read a few articles about the workers' movement in French West Africa after World War II, that basically because of the wartime agreements by General de Gaulle, and they were actually doing a brilliant job of integrating into the colonial system and get better treatments. But a few historians are arguing that the promotion of nationalism suddenly made the ex-metropoles, it basically gave them the opportunity to say, okay, now you are on your own business, so we are out of it.
Right.
So
that's why.
Yeah.
That's why. That's why.
I'm pretty sure they're using.
That's why it's so critical.
Sékou Touré as the example of.
Yes. Yeah. That's why it's so critical to read Kwame Nkrumah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Any of his work, Class Struggle in Africa. He wrote about 14 books.
Yes.
And Nkrumah's work is the antidote. He's the one. Kwame Nkrumah. He's the one who coined the term neocolonialism, which is a remarkable theoretical tool for demystifying and dismantling that argument that you just talked about.
Sango.
Yeah, exactly. So, that you say that, this is what students are doing as well. They're writing they're writing papers. Some of them are even traveling to the Congo to do field research. And you get a little older and up there in university, any former students or whatever, doing field research, that just every conceivable level that you can think of to engage that space with seriousness, and serious inquiry, investigation, knowledge production, right? Make it a part of the discourse. And I can't overstate it enough that these young activists, that's what they're doing. They're making it a part of Free Palestine, the Free Sudan, the Free Haiti, making it a part of, it's important enough to them for them to, to embrace a free Congo, the Free Congo movement. So, thank you for that contribution. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. I think we're coming, yes, we're right down near the end of it. So thank you all so very much, Yes, thank you for this, yes. And build on.